Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to FAFSA Ready, Set, Go Live, where we help you unlock financial aid to support your college dreams. My name is Katisha Tony, and I am the president and CEO of CoatesInc. I am excited to introduce you to our first ever FAFSA Live session. These sessions will take place every Tuesday at 12:30 and 6:30 p.m. throughout the month of August to provide our communities with the comprehensive financial aid support that they need. Whether you need help understanding FAFSA, completing the application, finding scholarship information, or exploring local opportunities and all things financial aid, we've got you covered. We know families often have questions about FAFSA or financial aid packages and may not always know where to turn. Our goal is to eliminate barriers and provide the support that you need. So during these sessions, you'll hear from our qualified staff and sometimes from experts in the field of financial aid and FAFSA. For example, joining us today is Ms. Gina Pirtle, the Director of Financial Aid and Scholarships at Indiana University. But before we dive into our conversation with Gina, I'd like to introduce our dedicated FAFSA staff who will be joining us today. We have Lolita Wilson, our College and Career Coordinator, Shannon Davis, our FAFSA Program Coordinator, and Melissa Carlos, our FAFSA Support Specialist. Welcome, everybody. So right now, let's just start just a general conversation about FAFSA and just sharing some of our experiences and just kind of discussing why it's so important for FAFSA. Right now, can you just share some of your thoughts on FAFSA and why it's so important to you all?
Well, FAFSA is very important because it is your money. When you think about going to school, if you don't have a family, if your family's not able to pay for you to go to school, you're not able to pay for yourself, right? Not 18 coming out of high school. FAFSA is where we get our money. So be it whether it is scholarships, our grants, through our state, federal loans that we qualify for, this is the way that we are able to get to school.
Yeah, I agree. Like most importantly, I always tell students and family FAFSA is the way to pay for everything when you need to go to school. So I always tell students, do you have any money already saved to the side? Does your parent have a 529 account for you or anything like that? And if they don't have all those things, then FAFSA is going to be why that's so important on everything.
And I'll just share just even my experience. I knew that my family did not have the money to go to school. So just even probably from freshman year, I was trying to figure out how am I going to college? You could not tell me since I was the age of 5 that I was not going to become a psychologist. I am not a psychologist because obviously once I got to college, things changed. But I knew that I wanted to go to school and I knew that my family could not pay for it. So understanding the FAFSA process was something that I had to learn, gathering my mom's tax information. I'll be honest, I was a first generation college student. So my family really didn't know what we were supposed to do either. So it is very important to start early in learning about everything that you will need, different processes, scholarships, what schools you are interested in, maybe even careers that you're interested in, because it really makes a difference when this time comes and you're ready to start preparing for that next step in life after high school.
Agreed. Also, I want to hear actually from you, Melissa, just as a student, like what advice would you give to other students who are about to start the FAFSA process? Especially because I know Melissa is right now a senior at IUN. So just kind of hearing that from you. We'd love to hear your perspective as a student.
Yeah, so FAFSA is extremely important, especially with me, particularly the grants have helped me a lot. My family, we're not paying for we don't have the money to pay for college, so we've been relying a lot on FAFSA, right? And so my advice to anybody who is going to college or is in college right now is to apply. Don't be scared. It's not a scary process as it may seem. And if you are confused or need help, there's a lot of help. CoatesInc would be able to help you guys. So to do it sooner rather than later. And again, just to not be scared. It's not scary at all.
Thank you. Lolita, I have a quick question for you. What has been some of the biggest challenges you face when you're helping students with FAFSA?
Well, the biggest challenges is mostly the students want to do the FAFSA. The biggest challenges is the parents sometimes do not want to give up their income and their information, and that stops a lot of students from being able to get financial aid, federal, and then they're only eligible for loans. Nobody wants to take out loans. So basically, I think it's more, we need to get the parents more educated as far as the financial aid application.
Very true. I think that might be the biggest issue that I even faced as a school counselor. I used to be a school counselor. And I think the biggest thing is sometimes the students will get that FAFSA done a lot sooner than parents will. They'll get that first part done. And the biggest part is, getting the parents to put in their financial information. And I'm excited to hear from Ms. Purtle from IUN. We bring her on, just kind of like the differences and the changes that has happened with FAFSA, because at first it was a lot of like, pull your financial information from, when I did the FAFSA, we had to do it on paper, and then they eventually did it electronic. Not saying I'm old or anything, I'm still young, but I had a lot of times having to do it on paper. And then also when you got it into being able to be online, it was also still a lot of issues, because then if you didn't put your street right, if you didn't put the address in right, it was a lot of changes that happened. And I know that with the new FAFSA that's happened, the better FAFSA now, I'm hearing that the FAFSA is completed in like 20-30 minutes, as long as you have all your information. And also it links directly to the IRS. So there's a lot of things that are making it a lot easier for students to actually complete the FAFSA, and for parents to complete their FAFSA portions as well. And I know that Melissa talked a little bit about ways to get some information and how to get those supports. Like being a first generation college student, I was as well. So I didn't have a lot of people to go to, or a lot of places to go to get that help, because I was the first one going and the first one going through that process. Would love to hear from everyone in terms of like, what resources or support systems did you have when you were going through the FAFSA completion process?
Well, I can start. Mine is on another scale, because when I went to high school, I don't remember having conversations with my counselor, so I didn't know nothing about the FAFSA. So I'm thinking, having CoatesInc as a resource, I think is great, because a lot of students, a lot of parents don't know about FAFSA. So if you have somebody out there that's, hey, we'll help walk you through this process, that will help, because I didn't have any help at all. Didn't even think about going to college. So of course, no one had that conversation with me. So I was like, okay, I'm going to graduate from high school and go straight to work.
What about you, Shannon?
I will say, I went to Westside High School. Shout out to Westside, because I'm just going to always shout out my high school, in Gary, Indiana. And I will be honest, we really did have very good counselors at the time that truly helped us kind of take those steps. I'll be honest, I had one of those moms. I didn't have a paper application. We did ours on the computer, and my mom's like, "You're not putting my information on there." And I'm like, well, but I need your information so I can see what I qualify for, And so it was kind of that transition period and understanding. But we did go to our counselors a lot to kind of give us some guidance and help. But I do believe that now things are a little bit different, a lot more responsibility on the counselors. And so it may not be as easy to really walk as many children, down each and every step of the way. So it is very good that we have different resources out here like CoatesInc, willing to come in and really help you from beginning to end. So even CoatesInc starts at 9th grade, to 12th grade, and can follow you through and really give you some guidance and help parents understand that process a lot more as well, along with the students.
Yes. Melissa, you have anything you might want to add to that?
Yeah, so I am a first generation college student, and I went to my cousins. They had already went to college, so they knew what the process was. But if it wasn't for them, I would have no idea how to fill it out or where even to start. They were the ones that explained it to my mom, why they needed all her information. And so I think for me, like having my cousins there who had already gone through that experience, as they were also first generation students, really helped me kind of have a very smooth first FAFSA, filling out the FAFSA for the first time.
Yeah. I think that it's important, like having that advocate piece. Like again, like Melissa had cousins. Like Lolita, I didn't really have anybody to go to be able to really help complete the FAFSA or really walk me through the process. It was a learning process. And also when you learn as you go, like sometimes you don't get everything you should have. Like there were scholarships that I didn't even know about, scholarships that I would have liked to apply for that I didn't have anyone kind of walking me through the process or helping out. So I do like that. This is one of the reasons why we're doing this live and doing all the additional supports that we're going to be providing, is that we're going to be here on Tuesdays talking to experts and giving you more information, just because we want to make sure that it's readily available. I always say when it comes to going to college, thinking about what's next, this is not always the high priority, right? But we need to have those conversations and make sure it's available, and make sure we're able to provide that type of information to as many people as possible, like really trying to like meet people where they are and break down those barriers for success. So I really appreciate you all just kind of sharing your insights and sharing some of your experiences. And now I'm just excited to bring in our special guest, Ms. Gina Pirtle. She, again, is the Director of Financial Aid and Scholarships at Indiana University Northwest. And she has an extensive background in financial aid and is here to answer questions and give us resources about FAFSA and financial aid. So thanks, Gina, for joining us. Again, thanks for joining us and sharing your knowledge. So if you could first, like, tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been working in financial aid.
I don't want to say how long I've been in financial aid. No, seriously. I actually started in higher ed in 2002. And I went into financial aid in 2004. At that time, that department was going through transition, and they needed help. And I was at a private Catholic college at that time. But once I got a hold of financial aid, I just never let go. So I've been in financial aid since 2004. So that's 20 years this year. I've been at IU for 6 years as the director of financial aid there. And I was just promoted starting August 1st. I'm now over financial aid, the registrar in career services. And so financial aid has taken me very, very far as that goes. Right now, I'm actually not in the office. I'm at a basketball camp. I took my son to a basketball camp, and I work remotely when I take him to camps during the summer. So I'm taking him today. My husband will be taking him for the next couple of days. But I also like to tie this back to me attaining a college education. It affords me an opportunity to have this type of flexibility that I don't think I would otherwise have if not for that college education that I was able to achieve with the help of financial aid.
Yes, thank you so much. You answered my first question before I even got into it. So thank you. And for one, congratulations on your promotion. And this is really real to say on Tuesday, we are talking to experts. So someone who has over 20 years of experience in the game. And again, everybody not always having access to be able to ask you all these questions. So even if people can come back and, hear this live again, share with anyone you think might need this as well. But I'm excited to have you and to just dig into your knowledge and get as much information as possible out of you to share with those who are watching.
Thank you.
I wanted to just get into I'm going to go really general at first, just because I want to make sure that people are able to answer even the questions that they think are not good questions. But who is eligible to apply for FAFSA?
You just have to be a U.S. citizen or eligible non-citizen. And so we have, we call them mixed status families, whereas the child or student may be an eligible citizen, but not the parents. But that student still qualifies for financial aid. So mixed status is family. If the student is in fact a citizen or eligible non-citizen, they qualify for financial aid even if their parents are not citizens.
That's good to know. I'm glad you said that, because I don't know if everybody knows that, but even so, even if your parent is not a citizen, but you can qualify for financial aid.
Right. Well, you can qualify to file the FAFSA, which is for our department. That's the beginning of financial aid for us, the completion of that free application of federal student aid. And I like to say that FAFSA acronym, I like to say it out so people understand it is free. You should not be paying to file the FAFSA, and it is a federal form. Right. When it's a federal form, we're dealing with the federal government. They ask for stuff. right?
Mhm.
And that's part of the FAFSA process that a lot of parents probably don't like when they're asking for your information, but it's a federal form, and that's why.
Okay. Thank you so much for that clarification.
Mhm.
The other question that I have that's more of a general question is what information and documents do students need to gather before filling out the FAFSA? And I'm asking this because as we think about these live sessions that we're going to have one-on-one sessions, and we're going to be in the community providing financial aid support. I wanted to hear from you specifically around what information and documents do students and families need to gather?
You know, with this new FAFSA for this year, um, basically it asks for asset information, anything that is related to finances, but not on your taxes. And so with the new FAFSA, when you started, they asked for your consent. That consent is allowing the Department of Education to pull information from the IRS. Okay. And that's a direct data exchange, is what that is. We call it DDX, to get your federal tax information, FTI. We use a lot of acronyms in financial aid. And so with this new FAFSA, once you get your consent, it pulls all of that financial information from the IRS. So this 24-25 school year is fall 24, spring 25, summer 25. It uses your taxes from tax year 2022. And so it's pulling your 2022 tax information automatically. So you don't necessarily need your taxes if you file taxes and if you give consent. If you don't give consent, they won't even process the FAFSA for you. So you have to give consent. So it pulls that information. But other than that, it's going to ask you for asset information and for how much you have in your checking or savings or cash on hand. But other than that, if you know that information, you really don't need anything. For those who don't know their social security number, like it's quite a few students that may not know that, you need your social security number, your birthday, your name, right, to just begin that process. But you also need it for your contributor. That's what they call them this year. Your parents are your contributors. And so you need that information for your parents as well. And it's not so you can fill the FAFSA out for them, it's so that you can invite them to complete the FAFSA. And so once you put that contributor information in, your parent will receive an email from the email address that you gave them in the FAFSA. And it is only that link your parents can use to complete the FAFSA on your behalf, the rest of it.
And I see someone is asking a question, one or two parents. So do you need, when we're thinking of contributors, does both parents need to fill out the FAFSA, or is it just one parent? Okay.
Excellent question. So if your parents are married and they filed taxes together, you only need one. If your parents live together, not married, you will send it to both. If your parents are no longer together, okay, and you live with one, or one contributes mostly to you, you would just submit that one parent's information.
Mm.
So I'll say that again.
Yeah.
Okay.
So actually,
We have some situations where parents used to be married and you may live with one or the other. You choose which parent is the highest contributor to you. That's the parent's info that you add to invite them to complete the FAFSA. If both parents are together and they file taxes together, you only need to ask one. Okay. The only time you need two parents on there is if they may live together, okay, but they don't file taxes together.
mm,
And you may then need to invite both parents to the FAFSA.
okay. Perfect. Thank you for that clarification.
Mhm.
And I'm going to add into that question because what I'm thinking about is when they go and get support, like at schools or even when we're providing that support, and they're completing the FAFSA, don't they have to complete the FSA ID first before they can go and get that support? And I'm asking that, like, even for those who are rising seniors this year and they're going to get ready to start doing the FAFSA, does it take a certain amount of time for them to do the FSA ID and let that process before they can actually like complete the FAFSA?
So yes, so they say to do the FSAID 2 to 3 days before you complete the FAFSA. Before you didn't have to do that, now you do. So last year you didn't have to do that. This year you do. Yes,
So making sure they complete that FSAID first,
yes.
specifically if they're going to get any support from anywhere. And I see there's a question coming in about scholarships. I'm going to ask that in just a second because I have one more question that I want to ask you specifically around the FAFSA completion. How do colleges use that information that's provided on the FAFSA to determine their financial package? Like, how do you complete the FAFSA and now you have a financial package, and because of everything that's on there, how are you coming up with that, I guess?
Right. And so when you submit the FAFSA, is getting financial information, and the government has their calculation to determine what is a student aid index. And so that's the number they're using this year. Years prior, it was EFC, right? Now it's called SAI, or student aid index. That number determines everything. It determines if you have need. It determines your Pell eligibility. It determines if you are considered low income or not. And this is the thing with schools, like we have to submit data every year of our population of students and where they land as far as, okay, economics. Okay, what are their status as it relates to economics? How much Pell did we give out? How many students were Pell recipients? How many students were state recipients? That information, especially for IU Northwest, it lends well for us because the more students we have in those types of categories, the more money we will receive from federal government. And so we receive a lot of campus-based aid, that's federal money, in the form of supplemental education grant or federal work study grant because of those numbers. Of course, the Pell Grant, the state money. But also we're able to apply for federal grants. I'm actually in a group, I'm so proud of this, that's writing a federal grant. It's due August 5th. We just met again. But because of the numbers that we have, we can apply for these federal funds to get money to help students even more, right? And these are federal funds that don't come out of the pocket of IU. It comes from the federal government. And this particular grant is a 3-year grant, and we can get up to $300,000 a year. So that's like $900,000 for basic needs to help students with maybe housing costs, technology costs, food costs. And so we use the monies in that way, or the information from the FAFSA in that way. So the main reason to complete the FAFSA is to see what you're eligible for from the federal and state government. But other reasons to file the FAFSA is to help us with our data analytics, so it can help us with other things that also we bring back to our community to help.
Okay, perfect. And I know there was another question. This is a good one. Do I have to provide my step parents information? And this kind of goes into what you already were talking about in terms of contributors and things like that. Do you have to provide your step parents information?
So if it's a step parent, that means they're married to a parent, and the government is trying to see the household income. And so generally, yes, your step parent ends up being included if they file taxes married filing jointly. So let's say, and I'll use myself as an example, right? I have a daughter. My daughter's 32. She went to college. I was married, remarried, right? That my husband is her stepfather. When she went to college, yes, both of us was on the FAFSA. He and I were married. And if today we had to do the FAFSA, when she submitted my name as a contributor, and I went to the link and said, yes, I'm going to file the FAFSA as a contributor for her, it would automatically include my husband's income because we file taxes jointly. Okay. Now, if the step parent is in a house you did not file jointly, yes, you're supposed to include the step parent as well.
Okay. Thank you for that clarity. And as we're talking about this, like, what are some tips for, of course, when we fill out the FAFSA, we're trying to get as much money as possible. So what are some tips for maximizing financial aid eligibility to get more financial aid?
Well, if you live in the state of Indiana, file a FAFSA before April 15th, right? That's the state deadline. Now, many years they extend that deadline because they have the money or availability to. And so the state of Indiana, they give appropriations every 2 years for 21st Century Scholar, Frank O'Bannon grant, even adult student grant. And if enough people didn't complete the FAFSA by April 15th and they know they're going to have money left, they'll extend that deadline in the hopes of spending their appropriations, because if they don't spend it when it's time to redo the budget, they'll take the money. So they try to spend as much of that money as they can. File the FAFSA early. The other thing is, we have a new scholarship just for IU Northwest students from Hard Rock Casino. They gave us a check to Urban League, $250,000. And they want to extend it to at least 30 students, but there is an application process. So file scholarship applications on time, right? And be thorough. When you, I've seen so many committees for scholarships. They read those essays. Like, be thorough in your essay. Be clear about why you want this college degree, what you hope to attain by going to college. How do you expect to help your community when you go to college? These committees read those essays and they make decisions off of those essays. So file the FAFSA early, file scholarship applications on time.
Okay. April 15th. April 15th. I'll say it again. That is the FAFSA deadline, making sure that you apply by then. But again, as you said, applying earlier so that you can qualify for any of the scholarships that are available. And this is going to get back to the question that was asked, is like recommendations for college scholarships. I know that every school has their own specific scholarships. But can you tell us a little bit more about any recommendations for scholarships? I know you talked about one, and we're going to go back to that in a second. But give us any information that you have around college scholarships and where they should go to get that information.
So you have to apply to college early. There's so many students. I ask, what school you going to? They tell me. I say, have you been accepted yet? And they're late in their senior year and don't even know if they've been accepted yet. So you have to get accepted to those colleges in order to qualify for their money. Until they see your high school transcripts and your scores, you don't put yourself in a position to be offered anything. Don't discount those ACT, SAT scores. Colleges look at that. And I know a lot of colleges during COVID you didn't have to take tests were optional. The test they were talking about was the ACT and SAT. They made it optional to be admitted to the college, but they weren't optional as it related to receiving money, scholarship money. They based the scholarship money on an SAT, ACT, and GPA, right? And so you could have had a good GPA, but you opted not to take any of the tests. You didn't put yourself in a position to get any money. And so that's where a lot of families made the mistake, thinking test optional. Test optional means you took yourself out of the running for money. So you need to apply early. Apply as a junior. Send them your transcripts at the end of your junior year.
Yep.
To get decisions made. The earlier you apply, they begin to count that money towards you because they're looking at budgets all the time. Colleges are looking at budgets all the time. Let them know you're interested early by being accepted early.
I love everything you're saying because these are all things that we tell our students. So again, test optional does not mean that they're giving you the money to go to school. It means that we're allowing you to be accepted. And that goes back into, if you have money saved up for college, that's one thing. But if you don't have the funding to go, you want to take that SAT and take that ACT so that you can have, be awarded more scholarships. And I also would, it would be wrong if I didn't talk about going to the CoatesInc website for scholarship information as well. So again, the website is there, www.coatesinc.org. So making sure that you check that out. We have a lot of information there as well in terms of scholarship and information. But as we're getting into scholarships, I wanted you to kind of give us a little information about some of those local scholarships. I know this is for anyone who can get information about FAFSA. We're sharing that, but I know you are at Indiana University Northwest and you're local to Lake County and Indiana. Are there any specific scholarships that people should think about applying for if they are in the area and are planning to go to school?
There's a scholarship for IU Northwest. It's called Emerson. If you live in the Emerson district, which is the 46404, okay, zip code, you automatically qualify for this money, right? But you have to be admitted to the college. You have to maintain a certain GPA. And really, most students, we make them apply, but they don't have to apply. We go and look for students to give this money away to, because we have so much of it, right? It was left to Indiana University for Emerson residents. And so often we then go to other Gary residents to give the money to, because enough Emerson residents don't attend the school. So we have money left on the table every year in that specific scholarship, 4644 zip code. Again, Urban League is a good resource for scholarships that's out there. Urban League works with Legacy Foundation as well. Good source of scholarships. So often they're looking for students to give this money away to. Enough students don't apply. So the money is out there. This is somebody else's money to pay for you to go to school. And so it's always better to spend someone else's money than your own. And there's plenty of it out there.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that. And then just again, that Emerson having the zip code 46404. If you are in that area, just know that you can get additional scholarship money just for living in that area. And also going back to the Hard Rock scholarship that's available, that is from my understanding, it's a 4-year full ride scholarship. Yeah. The only thing you have to do is be accepted to Indiana University Northwest, be a Gary graduated from, or I think it's a Gary resident graduating from a Gary school. It could be a charter school. It could be a private school. Any of those things are there and available. So all you have to do is apply to the scholarship at Urban League and then be accepted to IUN. So even if you are a student who is accepted to IUN, from what I understand, you can still actually apply for that scholarship and get 4 years of tuition being covered. So it's not too late for that. I just wanted to kind of go back to that. There's 30 slots. So don't miss out on that money. So making sure that you actually apply for that. So thanks for sharing that. And then also they have the groups IUN, I believe, as well as a scholarship. And what do they provide?
So Groups is a program that was started many years ago at Bloomington, IU Bloomington. And IU Northwest was the first regional campus to adopt the Group Scholars a year ago. And so we invite students on campus during the summer to take 6 credit hours. So to get a jump ahead of everyone else. These 6 credit hours go towards their degree. IU pays for those credit hours, plus we give students a stipend. So they make sure they have the classes and then their books and supplies that's needed for the courses. They meet regularly with the staff person that's like their mentor the entire 4 years that they're there. But they also do outings, go to trips, go to museums, just expose them to other things. We really want to add some other things to it, like study abroad for those students. Like we have money for study abroad, but so often students in our community don't take advantage of those things. I talked to some people from IU and I explained that you cut them off at the door when you say they have to have a $300 down payment, to go study abroad. Many students turn away from that because they just don't have $300 to give. And so we're in discussions with IU to say, you front that money and tell them they don't have to put anything if they're interested and they qualify to go. And then we'll see about how we can help attain the rest of whatever it costs to go. And so I love the fact that I'm in those spaces and I can speak. I have that type of voice to speak or lend to things like that they some other communities don't even think is a hindrance that I know is a hindrance for our community.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing that, and thank you for just advocating for the students in the community who need that support. I wanted to ask a couple more questions about FAFSA around like common mistakes. So what are some of the common mistakes that students or parents make when they're completing the FAFSA, and how can they avoid them?
Well, this year, one of the biggest common mistakes was a student answered the question wrong as to if their parents were willing to be put on the FAFSA. And they basically said, no, my parent isn't willing. And so the only thing those students will qualify for is unsubsidized student loan. In many instances, we found that the student just answered the question wrong, right? And so we're trying to identify those students and reach out to them and say, hey, we believe this was a mistake. Go back in and fix the FAFSA. So they can add a parent to the FAFSA. Other simple common mistakes is sometimes they put their social security number in wrong, like unbelievable. Yeah, that happens. Or getting anything wrong when they invite their parent. So let's say they put in the wrong social security number when they invited their parent. Then it can be a total weeble wobble. We have to like go all the way back and redo some things when that happens. So those are some common mistakes. Making sure the email address, we had so many of those this year. Your parent's email address has to be correct so that it goes to the right email address so your parent can access their portion of the FAFSA. So those things like that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. I have another question here. What options are available for students whose parents are unwilling or unable to provide their financial information on the FAFSA?
So unable and unwilling is two different things, right? Unwilling, student only qualifies for unsubsidized loans. That's just what it is. That's what it is, right? But unable, what does that mean? Like, are you unable? Why are you unable? What does that mean? With technology, how are you unable? So give me an example of what's unable to
Mhm.
provide financial information.
I know that I've had some students whose family are sick, and they're not able to complete the information online. That
Mhm.
has been one of the concerns of one of the students that we've dealt with before.
So they had a sick parent, you're
Yeah.
saying? Right.
Mhm.
And if they filed the FAFSA, it's not like we need them there, right? We don't need them to come into the office. Like that's totally online. Once you supply the parent information online and it's sent to the parent, from there is just a link. You giving your consent and confirming your information. Like it really is easy to complete the FAFSA these days.
Okay.
So do y'all hear all that in the background? If you do, I'm sorry. So I haven't come across a situation where a parent was unable, even if they're in another country. We have students with parents in another country, right?
Mhm.
They still have the technology or the ability to get the information to us as needed. And so we'll have to look at situations one by one to see what we can do to facilitate a student who's saying unable.
Hmm. Okay. And I see there's another question. If you're an adult returning to school, can you take advantage of the study abroad opportunity?
Yes, study abroad is open to all students, not just traditional age students. We have many adult students. It's some students, they're coming back to grad school, they'll take advantage of the study abroad. We have MBA students. This is something they do every year, a cohort of MBA students. So they are adult students. So yes, all students can take advantage of the study abroad experience.
Now, I know you referenced multiple times. I'm going to go back to like some of those general FAFSA questions. What's the difference between subsidized, unsubsidized loans and grants and work study? And, kind of giving a quick overview of those definitions that you just referenced over throughout this time we've been talking.
So I always say grants and scholarships are good money, right? Because they're free money. They're given to you. You're not expected to pay them back. However, you may be required to maintain a certain GPA in order to continue to receive them. So one of the biggest misconceptions of students is I received this money this year. I think I'm going to receive it every year. And it's just not the case. Unfortunately, we have this thing called satisfactory academic progress, or SAP is what we deem it. And you have to maintain a certain GPA level. You have to complete a certain number of credit hours to continue to receive financial aid. We are required through federal regulations to monitor students' GPA and their rate of completion to degree. And if they're not above a certain completion rate or GPA rate, we have to cut the financial aid off. And you have to explain to us why you're not, right, meeting those standards. So that's one thing. But grants, scholarships, free money, but you have to maintain a certain GPA. Federal work study is just that. You work, most of the jobs are on campus, and you get paid a check. Are you Northwest? 100% of our work study is federal. Once upon a time, 75% was federal and then 25% financial aid. IU had to kick in the money, but now we're 100%. The government pays 100% federal work study. So that is, you pay, you get a check every 2 weeks like any other employee as a work study student. Now loans, totally different, right? Grant scholarship free. Federal work study, you work, and then loans is just that. It's a loan that you have to pay back. You have subsidized and unsubsidized loans. Both loans, when you take those loans out, they begin to accrue interest when you take them out. However, the subsidized loans, the government will pay the interest as long as you're in school and you're enrolled at least half time. Half time in most colleges is 6 credit hours. Okay. But that unsubsidized loan, once it starts accruing interest, it continues to accrue interest. And when it's time for you to pay it back, you're paying back that principal and the interest. Whereas with the subsidized loan, because the government was paying the interest while you were in school, when it's time for you to pay that back, it's just the principal that you're paying on. And it doesn't start accruing interest until you enter repayment.
Mm-hmm. And I know that's a lot of information for people who are watching. But I always say, if you have questions, go to the financial aid office. Go and ask those clarifying questions, because I think that I'll say this. I don't think I know that the biggest reason why people don't continue on in college is because they don't understand their financial packages and complete their FAFSA and really understand what they're getting into financially. So making sure that you understand that and ask the right people those questions, and the right people are your financial aid officers at your school, not your friend or someone else who doesn't know. Calling in an expert and talking to them, that's what they're there for. Making sure you go and have those conversations with them. And I know, Shannon, you had asked the question, so I was going to let you go ahead and ask if you wanted to. You're muted.
Sorry. I know nowadays a lot of family structures are different. So say, for example, you're 19 years old, out of school, maybe your parents, for whatever reason, you're not living at home. Maybe you're living with another family member. How do you complete the FAFSA? How do we go about that with your parent information? Maybe they're considering them grown, right? And so they're like, well, you're grown, you're out of my home, I'm not giving my information. What happens to a student in a situation like that?
So if the situation is the parents' home is an unsafe environment and you can document that, that's totally different than I just don't live with my parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the question on the FAFSA is not who do you live with. Nowhere does it ask that. How they determine if you're on that FAFSA by yourself or if you have to add a parent is based on is how old are you? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Are you 24 and up? Then you don't need a parent. If you're under 24, we're going to need a parent. Or are you married? No, you're not married. Are you in foster care? Okay. Are you an orphan, a ward of the court? Are you in the military? Okay. Or do you have dependents yourself? Are you a parent? Right? If you say no to all of those questions, regardless of where you live, your parent has to go on the FAFSA. Only if the circumstances are such it's not safe for you to be in the home with your parent, do we then take another route. But just because you maybe live on your own doesn't necessarily mean you wouldn't have your parent on your FAFSA. And I always use myself as an example. At 18, my mother didn't work. I worked. I brought the money home to the family. And if at that point I had filed a FAFSA, I had moved out on my own, I still would have needed my mother on the FAFSA until I had my daughter, which was a couple of years later, right? I wasn't considered independent for FAFSA purposes until I became a mother. That was the first thing that would have made me independent, being a parent. Me living on my own didn't make me independent. Me making all the money in the house didn't make me independent, right? Unless I'm a parent, I'm married, I'm a veteran in the military, I still need parents' information on the FAFSA. And those are questions right off the FAFSA. If you say no to all of those questions, then yes, a parent has to be on the FAFSA.
Thank you. That's good information to know, I think, for people. Because most often, if you feel like you're at home and you're paying your own bills, you're like, I'm an adult. Why do I need my parents' information? So that's very good information. Thank you so much.
Oh, I see. Lolita asks, how does FAFSA work if you are a foster child?
And so that's totally different. You would be considered independent as a foster child, right? Even if you became a foster child in high school and you were never signed up for 21st Century Scholar, like they automatically make you a 21st Century Scholar if you become a foster child in high school. So that's one of the questions on the FAFSA. Have you been in foster care since the age of 13? And if you can say yes to that, it will not require parent information. So being a ward of the court, in foster care, or an orphan will automatically make you independent.
All right. Any other questions? I know, Melissa, you're on. I didn't know if you had a question specifically that you might want to ask, especially on a student perspective.
This is a question for some people who their parents may not have a social security number. How are they able to fill out the FAFSA?
I mean, it was a bear this year, the truth be told. So you're a senior. So in years previous, when a student filed a FAFSA and they was of mixed status, and their parent didn't have a social security number, we can print out the signature page and allow the parent to sign the signature page. And as a financial aid administrator, we could submit that signature electronically on behalf of the family. This year, they didn't allow that. Particularly because of the direct data exchange with the IRS. Like they wouldn't allow that. And so they had other means that they thought would work, but didn't work. And so now we have to go through this process that we walk families through. They actually come to the office and we walk through the process on the FAFSA for that parent. It's a several step process. Now, no, like, I'm part of listservs with financial aid community. They are working to simplify that. But as of now, it's just not. We're hoping to have it simplified by next year, but right now it's not. So it's a process we have to walk through with that family to get the FAFSA submitted electronically for our mixed status families.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. I want to see if anyone else has any other questions. All right.
I have a question. I'm sorry. If someone is late to filling out the FAFSA, can they fill it out late, or do they have to wait till the next year?
No, they can file it, and it's never really late. We say late for the sake of the state. We know how much money you miss out on when you miss that state deadline. But for 24-25, that FAFSA is actually available until June 30th of 2025. So that student can fill out the FAFSA anytime. But of course, if they want financial aid for the fall, you want to fill it out before the fall term starts, so you know your financial positioning before the fall term starts.
So if someone hasn't filled out the FAFSA for this fall, would they have to wait till next year?
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying. They can still fill it out. Okay. They have a whole year to fill it out. They can still fill it out. But I'm saying they will want to fill it out because they want to know how much financial aid they're going to get for the fall term. So just encourage them to fill it out as soon as possible.
Thank you.
So in other words, go ahead.
I have a question. You were talking about the Emerson Scholarship. Is there still funding left for this fall if somebody wanted to fill out for that scholarship?
It is always funding left for Emerson. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Wow, that's interesting that people don't know about this information. I just think it's so important that I'm sure there are people who are in Emerson who might even, so is it automatic or do they have to designate that? Or is it, if you have 46404 zip code, you automatically get it? Or is there some type of designation that people need to?
We actually, So we have a scholarship application, and that application closes in March. But because we have so much of that money still left on the table, we go looking for students that didn't apply. And so we go and we ask our registrar, who is the person over all the student records, go and show us all the students who are enrolled full time that live in 46404, and we automatically give it to them.
Mm,
Yeah.
okay.
Are there any type of, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Are there any type of requirements? Do they have to have a certain GPA, like, or just because they live there, they can automatically get it?
So if you're a first-time student, you'll automatically get it. There's no GPA on file, but yes, you have to maintain, I want to say, a 2.5 GPA, and you have to be full-time.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to enroll full-time.
Thank you.
So just making sure, again, I just want to go back to this again and reiterate the fact that, like, there's the April 15th deadline, but you can still apply and still get money. So don't think if you miss that deadline that you cannot complete the FAFSA. It might be more limited amount of money that you'll be able to be provided, but you will get some money. So I just want to make sure that we just bring that home, that complete the FAFSA, because you never know how much money you are going to get.
Yeah, I want to say too, you always will get federal money, which is the Pell Grant, right? That's free money too, and that's based on need. So the Pell Grant is always available regardless of when you file the FAFSA. But the other thing, the state does have what's called an adult student grant. If you're 24 or older, if you file the FAFSA late, there's the adult student grant, and you don't have to be full-time for that one. That one only requires you to enroll for 6 credit hours half-time. So is funding still available even if you file the FAFSA late?
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you.
I have another question.
Oh,
One more question. I have a student who did I'm sorry. I have a student who did the FAFSA, and she said that federal was only offering her $350. Have you ever heard of that before?
Mm-hmm. So that might be the minimum amount of Pell, and that's for one semester, right? Mm-hmm. And so the minimum Pell is $750 for the year. So that means $375 in the fall, $375 in the spring is what that means. And so that may be what she was saying. But there's also the federal SCOG grant, but I doubt if she would get that because SCOG is for our neediest students. Okay. So if her Pell was only minimum, then she didn't qualify for that other federal money. And definitely if that's her Pell amount, she didn't qualify for the state grant unless she's a 21st century scholar.
I don't.
Yeah, because 21st century took need off the table. Like if you qualify for 21st century, now you're going to receive it. Before they would still try to tie that back to need, but they no longer tie 21st century back to need. And so the other grant, O'Bannon grant, is high need as well. And so if that was her offer for federal Pell Grant, then she did not receive Frank O'Bannon, and she must not have been a 21st century scholar.
Yeah, I don't think she was, but was she qualified? I'm sorry. Was she qualified for the new scholarship that they have with the Hard Rock?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes, because if she's a Pell recipient, she has need, right?
Okay.
And so, yes, encourage her to apply for that because that Hard Rock is tuition only. And so it's a lot of students. You all should have money. You need singles. I'm sorry, guys. It's a lot of students. Because the Hard Rock is tuition only, like if you're getting 21st century, you're not going to get Hard Rock too, right? We wouldn't even consider you for Hard Rock because Hard Rock is tuition only. And 21st century and our Frank O'Bannon grant from the state of Indiana is tuition only too. Yeah. Okay. And so we would try to pick all students who probably don't have any state aid, right? Because state aid has to go towards tuition.
Okay. Well, I mean, I can't speak to how much information I got today. Again, this has been super informational. I learned a lot. I hope that you all did too. Thank you, Gina, for stopping in and sharing your knowledge. Remember, we will do these live sessions every Tuesday during the month of August. So it's happening at 12:30 and again at 6:30 p.m. So we'll be here tonight as well. So if you missed us live early today, right now, you'll be able to get us tonight as well. Another thing to note is that we also have one-on-one sessions available for anyone needing direct FAFSA support. And we also have bilingual support on some of those days as well. All you have to do is go to our website, CoatesInc.org, and find our FAFSA page and schedule a one-on-one time with us. The page is also full of a lot of FAFSA resources and details that we're updating all the time. So share our page, share our resources, and follow us on the social media platforms. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok now. So again, thank you all, and see you next time on FAFSA Ready, Set, Go. Where we spend Tuesday talking to experts on all things FAFSA and financial aid support. So see you all soon.